So thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. We are running this Jetzt-TV. I think you have been to Germany already a couple of times.
Yes.
You have met Devasetu.
Yes.
You have given satsangs in Germany. I do not know if we had an interview with you already.
Devasetu did a couple of interviews, I think, a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Two years ago, I think, and maybe 3 years ago, too.
Okay. So I assume that you told your story already. I have seen it, but not on Jetzt-TV. No?
Okay. Okay.
Maybe we will get into that one again. So what is the core of what you have to say, basically, and why do you say it at all?
Well, I can't answer. I can tell you right now that I can't answer the second question. The whys don't seem to have any meaning for me anymore at all.
Yeah.
Everything just is. So I stopped asking questions. I mean, how much crazier can a story be that an American doc who doesn't speak German at all ends up in Germany every year talking about this, right? So and I end up having a book published in German, and I don't speak a word of German. So I've stopped asking why. But the first question, what was the first question anyway? You said that there was two. You first asked something.
What do you have to say, and why do you?
What do I have to say? Yeah. Well, the why, as I said, forget. But I guess I find myself speaking about this only when asked, and as I said, I don't know why I get asked these things. But what usually comes out is talking about this or all there is. It doesn't really matter what you call it. Or it can't really be described. It can't be categorized or characterized. This all there is contains everything. It's exactly what the words suggest, all there is. So every thought, every emotion, every sensation, every concept, everything is included in this. And there's nothing outside of it. And it seems to be an object of desire. And yet, it is already what we seek, always. So it seems to be something that is of great interest. And I guess that's where the questions come from, and so that's kind of the message, I guess.
So there is a movement of interest that generates the questions, which is based on a belief of the existence, or in the belief in the existence of separate individuals.
Yeah, I have a new book that just came out in English. I don't know if you're aware of it. It was published by Non-Duality Press, and the title of the book is "Know You, Know Me, Just the Loving Awareness in Which All Arises." And that seems to be the main message these days. Is that there is no one. There's no separation. There's no separate questioner, there's no answer. I often in satsang it comes up, questions come up, and the conversation seems to take the direction as if there's something special that resides in here, and that the so-called out there are individual seekers looking for that something special. And what's become very clear is that no wisdom comes out of here. The wisdom, where's the wisdom when the only time anything comes out is when these questions are asked? I mean, if my wife asked me about a recipe, I would stand there dumbfounded because I couldn't really say anything. And if somebody asked me about the weather, I can look outside and say what the weather is, but there's no special knowledge. In my day-to-day life, so-called, I'm a physician, and I spend time treating patients. These questions never come up. So the questions really are part of that so-called wisdom. And when you look at the whole picture, there's really no individuals. It's just questions and answers, the appearance of individuals, the appearance of someone who has answers, but that's not the story.
What I see, I mean, I believe I have a similar view, to the view that you communicate about. It looks almost like a solution, when suddenly it is seen, or the alternative that there is no individual at all is considered somehow. Then everything falls into its place in a new way. That's what is so fascinating about it. But in the end of the day, it seems to be just the falling away of beliefs in individuals to exist.
Yeah, that's exactly true. The appearance of the individuals never disappears.
Yes.
The sensations are the same. None of that's changed. But as you say, it is absolutely the falling away of the belief. That belief is a very precious belief. It's a belief that seems to create our entire world. And when that belief, when it's seen through, when that belief falls away, everything else falls with it. If we were to take the history of the awakening seriously, because as I said, I don't take that as even time is included in all there is. So time is just a concept. Everything is arising in this moment. And the so-called memories that refer to something outside of this moment, they're just thoughts also. They're just beliefs. And they fall away also in this knowing. But, if we're talking about the story, I guess there was a time when the main issues seemed to be surrender. And that was the word that kept coming to mind when this shift occurred, surrender, surrender. And at first, there was this image or concept that I had surrendered and I disappeared in that surrender. And then there was a recognition that what did I surrender to? There was nothing separate. So I surrendered to nothing. And then there was a recognition that there was no one even surrendering. There was just surrender, just happening. And with that, there was the recognition that there never was an individual to start with. It wasn't that there was an individual at one time who then surrendered and disappeared. It was just never was. And as everything just collapsed, the concept of time collapsed into the clarity that it's a concept of space, of separation, collapsed into that clarity. And they're all beliefs. Everything that we hold so dear, every way in which we look at life, that we're absolutely convinced that there's a life separate from this, that there's something out there, or that there's a world that was 10 minutes ago, or an hour ago, or a year ago. All of those beliefs just are just beliefs, exactly.
Somehow we seem to be stuck in our brains who somehow hold these beliefs. So even that is beliefs. So any word,
it is.
Any
because
word,
there's no way to describe this, because even the way we speak, and it's perfectly fine to speak this way. I mean, this is just also the way it is. Even the concept of an individual with a brain, it's so hard to even use language, because once you're using language, you're automatically talking in this separation, this world of separation, and that just totally. But the fascinating part of that is that none of this really matters. See, with this understanding and this complete seeing through the beliefs, life goes on. Life just goes on. Nothing changes at all.
So, this very moment of looking through, or how was that in your memory when this shift happened? So, how did that express itself, or how is it stored in your memory? Or I don't know.
Yeah, right. I mean, again, as we see, the language doesn't really make it. You know, I know that in the story of Rick, there seems to be memories of having spoken about it, and also memories of this idea or concept that it was extremely important, and that's kind of faded. Now the so-called incident seems to have faded in importance and even in memory, but I can speak about it. The memories are still there. There were memories of so-called before the shift, where there were very powerful mystical experiences. I used to go to these Zen retreats. They spend a week meditating for long hours, like 14 hours a day. And I remember experiences that were mind-blowing, where there was always a tremendous sense of gratitude and like tearful peace. So, you know, really deep peace beyond anything I'd ever known. But those were always seen as events, as episodes that happened to me. And they were always seen as something that I could get back if I worked hard. And that just continues. So each time these beautiful experiences happened, there was a sense of loss when they seemed to fade away, disappear, and a sense of desperation to get them back. This event, or so-called shift, that was about getting close to about 12 and a half years ago. This was more of a quiet, just a very quiet relaxation, sort of a joyful relaxation and a disappearance of like a weight. I used to say it's like a piano has been lifted off my shoulders, you know. That it was just it was a relief. That was a dominant experience of relief. There was joy, there was, you know, laughter. It felt like a big joke, you know, but mostly just a relief, and it was much more quiet and less spectacular than all of these mind-blowing experiences. But the difference in that moment, what became really clear, was that there was no me. And that was the difference. It wasn't an experience. It wasn't seen as an experience that happened to me. It was seen that this me that supposedly had experiences never existed in the first place. Yeah. So, and that seemed to be followed by just long periods of just sitting by myself. I remember, you know, in retrospect, talking to people about what I used to think of meditation, which was, you know, focusing on something or focusing on my breathing, or, you know, and I remember the Zen people telling me, you know, that all I have to do is just sit. I never really quite got that, but that's what this was. This was just sitting. There was no goal. There was no need to experience anything or find anything, and that lasted for a couple of years. I had been ill. I had gotten I'd gotten cancer, and I was disabled, so I didn't have to work, fortunately, for a while, because I don't know if I could have. Yeah. I wasn't able to physically work, you know, at first, but you know, with this, I wasn't able to work at all, and that just seemed to gradually pass after a few years. And somehow or other, and again, the whys I can never explain anymore. The explanations don't really seem real. It just seemed to disappear, and then, you know, they started working again as a physician.
How many years did you sit?
After this shift, probably two or three years. Don't really remember very well. But I mean, I would be in the chair up in this room near our bedroom for 6-8 hours a day sometimes. You know, it's funny because I saw, you know, in those times that a lot of what people try to do. I just had this picture of people trying to follow a guru who was sitting like that, thinking that that's the way to get what the guru had. And it was kind of funny that this had nothing to do with getting what the guru had. This was just a result of what the guru sees. It just, you know, there was just nothing to do. Interestingly, too, I think surprising for some people when they hear this, the sitting wasn't all bliss either. there seemed to be periods of severe anxiety, panic, and bliss. And the way I saw it was that the panic was, I'm all alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just me. And then the bliss was, I'm all alone.
Mm-hmm.
Just and it was fun. And every time that recognition would come, I would laugh the same way. I mean, I would be sitting in the chair cracking up. But it would happen again and again. But you know what would happen is those steep hills and valleys would kind of even out eventually. They got smaller and smaller, and what was really left was just peace. You know, I know seekers, they really want to achieve what they think is this wonderful state of enlightenment or pure bliss. But the recognition also at that time was that the real bliss required those real lows. It was almost as if that without that, there's just peace. There's really, you know, at first I was saying, well, you know, as those hills and valleys started to disappear, there was, you know, where is this ecstasy? And it was just peaceful. It's just peaceful, and that's fine. It's
not necessary. Yeah? It's not
necessary, right? Yeah, there's nothing missing, nothing at all.
Okay. So I heard you saying that all is love and celebration.
Yeah, you know, when there's no you and no me, no one, and nothing to do, and nowhere to go, what's left? There's just peace, as I said, and joy and celebration and gratitude. And the gratitude comes from nowhere, and it's directed toward no one in particular, but you can say it's directed toward everyone and everything. And there is this just sense of love. It's indescribable because it's nothing like, I think, what concepts of love are, or what is still felt as, you know, love toward family members. But it's more, and it's different. It's just this sense of like just wanting to hug the world, you know, to embrace everything and to embrace life as it is. And you know, I sometimes joke, you know, I love my family, I love my work, I love my patients, I love my dog. I mean, I love my car, you know.
Yeah, who loves?
Yeah, exactly. So when you're out of the way, you know, there's nothing but love. There's nothing left. You know, there's no fight with the world. There's no resistance to what is. There's just a falling into what is by no one.
Yeah, but I saw at one time, and I saw all is bliss. So because love has the flavor, there must be two. Yeah? But when all is bliss, but bliss is not the right word because we relate bliss with this high emotions, right. Maybe what you call peace. Or yes. Existence. Yeah, that's it. Yeah? And all is that, and all arises in that.
Right.
That's the way.
And you know this. Well, you know, this is why I say this love, if you want to call it that, is nothing like the love that we generally speak about. It includes that. It definitely includes that. It includes everything.
So somehow this all sounds very simple, and
Yeah, it actually is.
It is. So why is it not common knowledge? What is the obstacle? What?
Yeah. Well, you see, I don't look at it as an obstacle, and in a way, it's the most common knowledge there is. I mean, it's not obviously knowledge with the mind. It's known, but it seems hidden. And in life, this simplicity is excruciating. Remember when I said that that there were periods of bliss, feeling that I'm alone. There's no one, and there were periods of terror that I'm alone. The idea that there's someone, and the idea that there's something missing, that there's no one to relate to, that you're all alone, to the mind, to the belief that there's an individual, that's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. So the simplicity, with nothing to do and nowhere to go and no one to do it, it's excruciating to that belief. I mean, that belief is so precious that when that belief is threatened, all whole heaven and earth get moved to support that belief, even to create this entire world of appearance. And but it's also clear that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. There's no need for anything to change. There's no need for, quotes, people to get it, whatever it is. They already are it, and being it includes so-called not getting it. Being it includes being confused. It's fine. The world is this incredibly complex appearance, and yet it arises out of this total simplicity. And what could be more special?
But on the other hand, what is seen here is when it is seen through, the illusion is seen through, suffering is reduced, seems to be reduced somehow, because these mechanisms of separation and judgments somehow fade out.
Yeah. Well, looking at the world as it is and seeing the suffering, and seeing that, and still saying things like that everything is perfect as it is not to deny or ignore the suffering. The suffering is, and that's why that seems to be associated with the seeking, and the seeking seems to be an aspect of life, of what is, and an unavoidable one. In spirituality, the seeking is for so-called enlightenment, but everything is seeking. That seems to be a component of life. The one-celled animals are seeking. They're seeking food. They're seeking sustenance. Everything is seeking. Everything is missing something. The world of appearance is that, and there's suffering associated with it, especially not getting what one is seeking. Not becoming rich and famous, not getting the woman you love, the man you love, not getting enlightenment. So it's seen as sort of a necessary part of life, and doesn't diminish life. It's seen from from a perspective of no one. But yes, it's clear that suffering is. Yeah. And I think the word that comes up frequently is like, where's the compassion? And the compassion is also not a separate word. It's not someone feeling sorry for someone else, but it's complete love and acceptance. I mean, the only image that comes to mind is wanting to hug and relieve the suffering, even knowing that it's an immutable aspect of life.
Mm.
And sometimes it does seem to be relieved that way.
So coming to you, talking to your work, you are an ordinary physician, or you are a physician. I saw something on the web, a biography briefly when I prepared for this interview, just to understand you better. So you are working on the edge of fighting cancer and pain, I understand?
Yeah, mostly cancer. My personal work is with almost entirely with cancer patients. I have a center, a multi-specialty center, and there's other docs working there too. And we see all kinds of patients with all different kinds of problems. And the main focus of the center is treating people more naturally, helping them to get off medications, using diet and exercise and supplements. We do vitamin drips, we do detoxification, things like chelation, all designed to try to get people healthier. I mean, the main thrust of the program, the main belief is that if people can get healthier and can learn to live healthier, a lot of their symptoms are going to go away. It doesn't always happen, but very often it does. So it's not focused as much on reducing symptoms as much on improving people's health. The cancer side of it is the part that I focus on entirely, the cancer patients. We do a couple of different procedures that seem to help cancer. We do use chemotherapy for advanced cancer, but very, very low doses, something called insulin potentiation therapy. And with that type of therapy, combined with all the other things that I was talking about, detoxing and, getting people on a better diet and using lots of supplements, patients often do well.
But you strictly limit yourselves to these, let's say, chemical, nutrition, physical methods. There is no mental work related to what you do?
I wouldn't say that. I think that's probably less overt, more subtle, if it does occur. I mean, we do. I don't know if you're familiar with emotional freedom technique or mind field technique. It's an energy type of treatment that helps. The head nurse in our nursing department does something called Reiki. You've heard of Reiki? Mm-hmm. Yeah, she does that, and something called Brima. And we work with the patients on breathing, and some of our patients are using Rife machines. I mean, we don't leave anything out, and we do encourage patients, to try to relax, to meditate, to do yoga, because we feel it's actually helpful for the immune system. These spiritual issues, the questions, to me, overtly, never really come up. Very rarely. Every once in a while they come up. And when they do, that's a discussion. It usually doesn't get very involved. But I think I've noticed that, this love that we talked about earlier, this complete unconditional acceptance, I think patients probably do feel loved in our center. And I know that that's the feeling that I feel all the time. I just have tremendous love for the patient, and I think they feel hugged and cradled, metaphorically. And it's not just me. It seems to be the staff is the same way. I think it is a very loving environment, and I can't help but think that has some positive impact on their health. Interesting. Remember, we talked about earlier that life goes on exactly the way it was. Even knowing that there's no one, and having no particular agenda for a future that I know is meaningless. Everything seems to be, in the world of appearance, everything that can be done seems to be attempted. So it doesn't matter whether or not there's this idea that I'm someone treating another one, trying to get them better. What matters is that it gets done, but it gets done without the desperation, and maybe it gets done better without desperation. Who knows? But the same lack of desperation, even in myself. Once this shift happened, I continued to try to take care of myself and try to do healthy things, but there was no more desperation. There was no more fear of death. And I don't fear death, myself or my patients. And even without the fear, you know, the attempt seems to be an attempt to do everything we can to help. But there's this kind of embrace of the patient wherever it may take us together as a healer and a patient.
I work in industry, and since the shift happened here, then I somehow have the impression that energy is released, because there was energy stuck in the past in complaining, in judging, in having ideas. It should be different than it is, and now there is acceptance and continuing from what is, from here now, and what is the next step, and then something like a natural flow seems to appear, which is really driving things further as before, but seems going almost automatically then, because there is nobody standing in the way or having expectations. That's right. Energy seems to be bound in these judgments and the ideas, these mental constructs that we superimpose the world normally. Should be some energy also then available for healing, for example. That's an idea that
I think so, and I think you know, it goes beyond whatever we call individuals. You know, it goes beyond Reinhold, it goes beyond Rick, because it seems to include the everything around you. You know, the people around you, including the patients. I think, including the people who you're dealing with. You know, in your case, same as in my case, whoever's around you, also there's energy release. There's no judgment about anything either. It's like, okay, here it is. You know, sometimes patients will come in and say, why me? And they'll have this feeling, oh, they'll be terribly afraid of the future and what's going to happen. You know, what's going to happen to my children? What's going to happen to my family? Those kind of disappear in that moment of connection. You know? And the only thing that matters right in that moment is, you know, this is what is, and this is what we're doing right now. And that's it. And suffering goes away, you know. It's not that pain goes away. Pain is there when it's there. But the suffering is this big thing around the pain. You know, the pain can be severe, but it's here or it's here. But then there's this just big ball of suffering that just collapses. And it's all about the past, the future, what if, you know, this energy that you talked about.
Yeah, the simple question is, what is missing now? Huh?
Yeah, right.
How active are you as a satsang teacher in the United States and in Germany?
Not very active. I never try to arrange anything. Doesn't seem like it's part of the story anymore. It never really was. Things seem to have been arranged for me. And now there's a small group of people, maybe a dozen people, that come to satsangs when there's one fellow who seems to arrange it. He'll email me and say, how about a satsang, you know, in October or November? And I'll say, okay. And I always say okay. I never seem to say no. I just, you know, would pick out a date that I'm free. So it seems to happen once every maybe, you know, 2 months, month and a half, 2 months. And I'll have people come over to my house on a Sunday, and we'll do that. And in Germany, it's been the Rainbow Spirit Festival mostly. My friend Mariam and Teresa had been having that in Baden-Baden every year. Last year it was in Munich. So I had gone to those festivals every year. It's getting a little more difficult as I'm getting busier at work. And my daughter moved out to California with our 2 grandchildren. So now we're trying to, every spare vacation or time we have free, we try to go out and visit them. In fact, we're going Tuesday to visit them. Yeah.
So there is no initiative from your side to spread out all this. You just wait until the questions come, and somebody organizes it for you.
Yeah, it seems to be very difficult to talk about this. At the beginning, there was this sense of urgency to talk about it. In fact, I remember a feeling associated with like wanting to shake people. Like, don't you see?
Yes, I know this.
And now that's also part of the piece, is this recognition that, everything's exactly the way it's supposed to be. And if things need to change, they do. The world of appearance changes constantly. And, I guess now that type of change comes in the form of questions from the outside. Before, it seemed to be an urgency from the so-called inside. I mean, it's clear that inside and outside mean absolutely nothing. It doesn't really matter. But that's just the way it is for now.
Yeah.
And it's the same way as I have no idea why why I got out of that chair and started working as a doctor again. I have absolutely no idea. That was why the question why, when you asked it initially, I have no answers for these things. And it doesn't seem important anymore at all.
Mm. What comes into my mind now is that you meditated a lot, and I believe many people or many forms, or however we call them, who had such shifts did meditation for some time.
Yeah, but also it seems that there are these shifts that seem to be independent of any of that, even spiritual seeking. I mean, there are shifts that seem to, in the story, that's why it's so fascinating. It's so varied, There's no real, there are patterns maybe and tendencies, but when you look at the whole picture, anything can happen. But, I've read about stories about people shifting, after a nervous breakdown or having, alcoholic binges and waking up one morning and, anything can happen. Meditation does seem to be, part of it. At least a lot of the stories, but not all of them. Not at all.
Mm.
And I'm not so sure about everything has to be exactly the way it is. That's there's no way different. And in the Rick story, meditation was part of it. But if I were to pinpoint something that seems to be the most significant in Rick's story, was this crazy need to control life. And the big shift seemed to be the recognition that there was no one to do that controlling, and there was no life separate to control. And that probably, the intensity of that drive, so-called before the shift, and the relief with that recognition seemed to power that, that shift. And I think that is very common. That's also a common story. That this desperation seems to be part of a lot of shifts, even though maybe not all of it. I hear stories also. I think Ramesh Valsakar tells the story of just, or maybe it was Nisargadatta. I mean, somebody Guru just told him this, and he just accepted it. That was it. There wasn't any torture, there wasn't any, terror, there wasn't anything, just acceptance. So I imagine anything can happen. But I hear a lot of stories. You know, Nadine, my friend Satyam Nadine, he talks about a dark night of the soul as being very common. And I think that probably is very common. It's probably not universal, but it does seem to be common, this idea that people are going through this horrible, terrible situation and want desperately to escape. And then the recognition that the locked door was not even there. It was just an illusion.
And in my case, there was also a point of surrendering. Yeah? There was a point when there was a clear decision. I was in a retreat. Now I surrender to the divine, to God, or whatever it is, because it was somehow I was on a Jesuit Christian contemplation thing, and they proposed to do this, and I went for it, and then suddenly things started changing. Some observation mode was born. Then I said, "Oh, I'm not this." So then somehow it was related to surrendering, which seems to be a common pattern. Just giving up control.
How did the Jesuits take the full recognition of your surrender? I mean, do you still have the same, you have the same context as the Jesuits, or even the context is blown away?
It was a very slow process, I think. So I had meditated for a couple of years, and then I did this retreat and surrendered, and then suddenly I had some, you would call it mystical experiences, clear seeings, and that nothing has to be done, but still I was there. Right. So this seeing through the idea of me being a separate individual as an illusion happened only years later. But the Jesuits, they seem to be quite open. They know all this, of course, obviously, and but such shifts, even during their retreats, are extremely rare. So it happens only once a year or so. But they knew how to handle it. So they saw that I was completely blown away, and then they started grounding me. They said, "Now stop meditating, go to nature and sense the body, sense the feet, sense the ground, and all that, just to control the energies." But after that, I was accompanied by somebody who knows all this, and then certain obstacles, let's say certain structures which were still active, were seen by certain measures. Just looking into them, and then pain came. So this dark night of the soul was also experienced, but not as a long period. So it was really not bad. It was just a couple of things related to beliefs that I had accumulated early in my life, and then they were seen through. But this was really a painful process. But I was guided. Don't escape. You just go into it and sense the pain several times, which I did. And in the end, each time when I had such a situation, I always saw the pain was created by a thought that something in the world should be different than it was. And then after having repeated this a couple of times, finally it became clear it's all thoughts. So
right.
And I mean, the Jesuits are quite aware, and this also I had meditated with somehow related to Jesus Christ and this stuff, but as soon as this shift started during the retreat, I saw it's beyond that. Right. Immediately, it's beyond that. Right. So, and it was not really discussed. Jesus Christ is also a story.
A good story.
And did I answer the question?
Yeah, exactly. I figured you might have freaked them out.
No, not at all. Not at all. They just very pragmatically and in a dry way. Yeah, they just grounded it, and was not really conceptual discussions were coming, not at all.
Yeah, interesting.
I immediately recognized that I had received the present. Yeah? But I do not know if they really are on that page, or all of them are on that, in that vision of seeing, all is one, and me or the characters are only appearances in this oneness. Yeah?
Right.
That's a question. Yeah?
It's interesting because I think the Zen people also handled it the same way. Handled those mystical experiences. Okay, big deal. Get back on the floor and meditate, and walk and do your chores in the afternoon. What's so what?
Yeah, which is the best thing. One can get stuck in these experiences. So, right. I'm special. I have this experience. Right. I'm elected by something. These ideas might come.
Yeah, no, they do come, and they actually are torturous. For me, the more mind-blowing the experiences were, the more torture I experienced in trying to get it back after it faded, because it was, and that's the essence of life, bliss alternating with terror.
I once tried to tell this story about the mystical experience to one of these teachers, and he immediately said, "Don't stick with the mystical experience. This is a trap. Don't stay with it." And this was the best advice I ever got. So I accepted that and saw it, and then later, sure. When you got stuck with this, it's another concepts again. So leave it on. Don't touch it. It's crazy. Will you come to Germany next year or the year after next, or do you not have any plans yet?
I have no plans yet at all. I think Mary and Teresa generally invite me to their Spirit Festival. I'm just not sure what my schedule is going to be like this year. The year before, 2010 was the first year I missed in about 7 years, and I don't know what's going to happen. 2011 I was in Munich. And we'll see. We'll see what happens next year.
So what I see also is that some of these teachers do online satsangs via Ustream or such technologies. Would you open for such a thing?
Sure, I would do it. I seem to be open to it. I just don't seem to have any energy to actually make it happen. But I'm open. I seem to be always open to it. It's always fun talking about it. Once it gets started, I always say I have nothing to say, but then when it gets started, there seems to be plenty of noise that comes out.
It's somehow it's fun. It's fun to dance. To dance with it.
It definitely is fun.
Yeah.
So is that such a thing that you know of? These online satsangs. I know that I've done something on certain TV stations. Richard Miller, do you know Richard?
Yes, I know Richard Miller.
Yeah, so I did a Skype thing with him, and there were other people on the line. I'm always open to doing those kinds of things.
Okay. You have the time. You seem to be a very busy man, huh?
I'm busy, but it obviously depends on when it is. Weekends I can sometimes find the time, or evenings I can sometimes find the time. I certainly don't envision myself as doing a lot of it, though. Not unless something really changes with work that I do, with medicine.
How does your family see all this shift and
it's hard to say, you know. That question comes up, you know, has come up before. I think, I think for my wife, she said things like that I'm more real. She said things that, you know, I noticed that after the shift, she used to get very upset because with my illness, I had this sort of desperation to figure out a way to stay alive. And I would take, you know, all these supplements, but she said it used to make her sick to watch me because I seemed so desperate. And afterwards, it seemed I continued to take a lot of supplements, but the desperation seemed to be gone. So she didn't, you know, I didn't seem to be as troubled afterward. And she says I'm more real. You know, if I get angry, I get angry, but I don't. Doesn't seem to last. You know. Mm-hmm. And my kids, you know, I don't think they really changed or anything. You know, they're already grown, and even by the time, even, you know, 12, 13 years ago, I guess it was, or 12 years ago, when the shift occurred, they were still pretty, you know, they were in their 20s already. So they were out of the house. I don't think they had really that much. You know, I'm just dad, you know. I think nothing really is very different.
So they do not have the vision that you have?
I don't think they're particularly interested in this. You know, they're very involved in their lives. Daughter, you know, just recently moved out to California with her husband. He got a great job at in University of Davis in California, and so, you know, she's busy with her 2 kids.
Okay.
Our 2 grandchildren. So I don't think she, you know, her focus on life is very different. One of my, you know, my middle child, my older son, he's focused on being successful, you know, at his work. And our younger son is still looking for what he wants to do in life. I don't know yet what's going to be with him. But none of them really seem to be that particularly interested in this. And I don't have any particular need to get them interested in this. You know, it used to be that I would get upset with my wife because she didn't seem to have any interest in spirituality. And when I was seeking like crazy, I kept saying to her, don't you see how important this is? I mean, why don't you, you know, how can you be so shallow? I don't remember what the hell I was saying to her. But I realized afterwards that she was the happy one. I was the miserable seeker. I felt something was missing. She didn't feel anything was missing at all. And it took me all those years to find out that she was the enlightened one.
Yeah. This is interesting. I never considered myself to be a seeker. When I started only seeking when the shift already was well on its way. After that retreat thing, I just started meditating. I just wanted to look what is going on and just sit. It was just an impulse. Followed an impulse, and then the shifting thing happened, and that was in 2008. So then luckily I found Never Not Here. So
lucky you found what?
Never Not Here.
Oh, Never Not Here. Uh-huh.
Then I really found a frame of reference. Now these guys, now they now I can intellectualize and somehow integrate all this. But partnership is or marriages is always fun. There's a lot of potential for suffering, and after a while, I started saying, "Hey, my wife is my guru because she can push the buttons, and it always puts light into the structures."
Yeah,
that's how I saw it. But somehow she accompanied me to a certain extent on that path. So she's somehow attracted to Buddhism, which also brings some color into the family. It's just fun. It's just fun to get it from different angles, but it's all about the same.
My wife's major attraction is to shopping.
Okay.
and the family. Those are two major interests, and yet it's really interesting because she's not attracted to Buddhism, but she's a Buddha. I mean, she's accepted me, and all these, for all the crazy periods I've been in my life. As you can picture, from my history, I'm very intense. When I was into athletics, it was 3 hours a day. When I was into meditation, it was 3 hours a day of that, plus the athletics, plus working. And my wife is just like this, just loving saint that accepts me no matter what craziness I bring home. And so when I was going through all this stuff, meditation and the Zen, I was trying to get her to come to retreats with me, and she said, "Just enjoy yourself, forget it." And so she's fine. It's interesting. So she was my guru in a different way. Setting the example of what could be. Just being happy.
Yeah, this is a great gift. When you have such a partner, I mean, this is such a great gift.
I feel tremendously grateful. Tremendously.
Running out of questions.
That's kind of the way it always happens, isn't it?
Yes. I hardly prepare. I just go into these discussions, and then something comes somehow. Yeah.
That's the way the satsangs are too. And very often by the end of it, it's just silent. And that's fine. That's the other thing. That's the other thing that I noticed with my wife. We could be talking, or we could really just be totally silent. There's absolutely no need, to say anything. Everything is just fine. And if things come up, they come up. It's just, it's good. It's good.
It's great to be in such a relaxed state. I think we have some built-in enjoying mechanisms, I believe, sometimes. In the end, somehow talking as a natural scientist, I believe this fundamental joy is an underlying principle of all life. If this would not be built into us, we would not survive, probably. I don't know. It's a reflection of what is.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly. And it's known. It's universal. It's absolutely known. And the seeking seems to be this idea. When it seems to be covered, when it seems to be hidden. This knowing drives the seeking.
Makes a lot of sense what you say.
Yeah.
Yeah, these blissful states are the highest states. It's joy on the relative side. That is just a reflection of what is behind it all. That gives the direction somehow. It seems.
Yeah.
Sure, nothing to be achieved.
Right.
So, Anything you want to say?
No, I don't think so. When I go out to California next Tuesday, have you ever heard of the Science and Non-Duality Conference?
No.
It's in California once a year. They have a number of different speakers there, and so I'm speaking there. And I think my book, which just came out, as I mentioned, is going to be available there too. And we're going to meet, some people who I don't know if Richard Miller will be out. You know Scott Killerby?
Yes.
Yeah, Scott is going to be there, and Jeff Foster is going to be there. A few other spiritual teachers will be out there.
I know Jeff also. I had Skype with him, but not in this setup. It was just in Richard Miller's shows.
Oh yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. I was just invited out there. I had no idea. I didn't even know anything about the conference, and they just, contacted me, and I'm going to be out there. So
sure.
Why not?
So have a great trip.
Thank you very much.
When is the conference?
It's next week. It starts, I think, on Thursday or Friday, but my talk is going to be on Saturday. I think Jeff is talking just before me on Saturday morning, and I'm going to be about 11 o'clock on Saturday morning.
Okay.
All right.
So enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Reinhold.
Thank you very much, Rick.
It was really a pleasure meeting.